All right, welcome back. This is part 3 of UV mapping a crate inside Clara.io, and we're going to make it a little bit more advanced by having one panel be different from the rest, so that way you can individualize it, customize it any way you want, add in some scratches and scars and logos, decals, warning signs, you name it. All right, so let's get started. Over here on the left-hand side, click on the Explorer tab. You're going to come down here to Material Library. You're going to right mouse click, go to New, and we're going to need three things. We're going to need 2 standard materials, and we're going to need 1 multi-ID. So let's do the 2 standards. So I'll click on Standard. I'll come over here and I'll right mouse click on Standard. I'll left mouse click Rename. You can also double click it. I'll highlight the name and delete it, and I'll go ahead and I'll call this one Crate Matte. And I like to put the word matte in there just to abbreviate it, so I know that this is a material with the green dot here. Okay, then while I've got Crate Matte selected, I'll come over here on the right hand side, and where it says Diffuse and Color and Select Image, I'll click on that and I'll choose the crate image. So this is just the general crate image. All right, I'm going to repeat the process. Right mouse click on Material Library, go to New, Standard Material, rename it, and here we go. And again, come over here to where it says Diffuse, select Image, and I'll choose the crate label. Okay, so now we get into new territory here. To be able to apply both of these materials onto one object, that's where we have to somehow glue them together, bind them together, group them up. And that is what Clara calls a multi-ID. So I'm going to right mouse click, go to New, and I'm going to choose multi-ID. So you can see it comes in. It's got a little checkerboard sphere here called multi-ID. And you notice that over here, holy cow, you can see all the different multi-IDs. So basically an ID is just a slot where you could put a new texture or new material, actually. Okay, so again, I'm going to rename this just so it's really clear, and I'll just call it multi-ID crate. I just want everything to be nice and clear. Okay. All right, so now we've got all of our textures, we've got our materials, we've got our 1 multi-ID, we're ready to go. So I'm going to come up here, and we need to create, tell Clara what faces are going to belong to what ID slot. So I'm going to come up here where it says Tools. I'm going to click on the face material, but you can see that it's not selecting it. It's because I have to select the object first. So I'm going to click on Face Edit Mode so I can select faces. Okay, and when you select faces, you might notice if you scroll down here, you'll see where it says Material IDs, and you get some new options down here. It looks a little complicated, but we're only going to use a couple of these buttons here. So here we go. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to come out here and I want to click and drag a selection box around the entire cube. I'm going to orbit around, just make sure that I got everything. Okay, so I got everything. Now what I want to do is I want to deselect one of these faces here. This is the face that's going to have the label on it. So I'm going to hold down the Option key and click on this face there, and it becomes deselected. So all of these are selected. I'm going to come over here where it says Material IDs, and I want to make sure that says Material ID, and then I've got a number. So I'm going to assign the first number slot to all of these red selected faces, and that's slot 0. Okay, so with slot 0 selected, I'm going to choose Set ID, and it doesn't look like anything happened, but it did. I'll show you what I mean. If I deselect and I come back over here and I choose Material ID 0 and I say click on Select ID, you'll see that it goes ahead and it grabs everything. Now, why did it select this one over here? That's because this one over here doesn't have an ID yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to select this face here. This is where my label is going. I'm going to now choose Material ID 1 and choose Set ID. Okay, so now I'll show you how that works. If I go back to 0 and say Select ID, you'll see everything gets selected but this one here. That's because this face here has been selected as number 1. If I choose Show Me Number 1, Select ID, you can do that as well. Okay, so hopefully that will make sense. It's a nice way of being able to reselect certain groups of faces as well, but for us it's for texturing. Okay, so now I'm going to come back over here, click on the Explore tab, and what I want to do is I want to basically take the multi-ID and just drag and drop it right onto my crate. And you can see that it turns this color over here. And that's because over here on the right-hand side, the multi-color ID has this color. Now, the color is randomly chosen, so don't worry if your color doesn't match mine. Okay, so now what I want to do is right down here, I want to start filling in these slots, and I'm only doing 2. So I want to select Material ID 0. I have my 2 materials, and I'm going to choose the crate material. And as soon as I do that, look at that, it fills in. And you can see this one over here hasn't been done because I haven't set it yet. So Material ID number 1, I want that to be the label. And there we go. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. It's too shiny, we have too much specular, and of course the edges are not set up, so what the heck is going on? Okay, so let's take care of that specular shine. So what you can do is come back here to your green materials, click on them, come over here on the right-hand side, and find the category that says specular. And right here where it says glossiness, I would choose a lower number. You can choose 0, you can choose maybe up to 5. I'm just going to go ahead and 0 them out. There we go, too shiny. The other thing you can do is the textures are on top of this middle gray color. So if you come up here where it says color, you can click and you can drag and you can kind of color tint them. So if I want this to be, a little reddish, I can do that, or I can change the color over here. I just want it to be brighter, so I'm going to go pure white. Click on the other one here, the other material, and I'm going to go pure white, so a little brighter. I might change it back later. Okay, so the last step now is to fix these edges here. So how do we do that? Okay, so we're going to solve this with a UV map, and my couple of previous videos went into the basics of UV maps. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here to the Tools tab, because to do UV maps you have to be inside there. Make sure I've got my crate selected, and you either need to be on the object selection or face selection. Either is fine. So I'm going to be on object selection, make sure I've got my whole object selected, scroll down here to where it says UVs, and I'm going to click on UV map. And you can see that it doesn't look so good right now. It's messed up this face over here, plus they're all kind of stretching. What the heck is going on? Let's fix that. So I'm going to come over here on the right hand side and click on the Properties tab, and you can see that I've got my UV map is added, and I've got the little helper here, which is this yellow guide that is going to help me out. And actually, you know what? I realized that I just made a mistake. I forgot one very important step. So it's good that I made this mistake so I can show you how I fix it. So you'll notice that when I added a UV map, it went onto the face over here that has my danger symbol. And that's kind of how I remembered something was up. So you can do undo and undo the UV mapping, or you can come over here under the Properties tab, and you can see where it says UV map, and you can just click the little X right here and delete it, and now you're back. And that's really nice when we see the list over here. You can always come back here and delete any of these steps you've taken and go there. So what I forgot to do is I need to get the faces selected that are going to get the UV map, that are going to receive the UV map. So I'm going to come back over here under Tools, click on Face Mode. I'm going to come down here to Material IDs, and I'm going to choose Material ID 0 and click on Select ID. There we go. That's what I forgot to do, because these are the only faces that I want to receive the UV map. Now I'll come over here, make sure I'm on Face Mode, you should be already, and then click on UV map. Now we get a UV map that only gets applied to those faces that were selected, and my danger label here is still okay. All right, so now we just need to fix some settings here so that way things look better. But you'll see that now the texture is applying to the borders here. Okay, so over here on the right, I've got some options over here. I've got projection. It says planar, and that's why, and it's planar on the y-axis. It's going through the box, and that's why it's all stretching here. If I choose X, you'll see that it looks better, but it looks pretty terrible up here on the y-axis, and that's because it's on the x-axis. So it looks good on X, but terrible on Y. So what I'm going to try doing is right over here where it says projection, I think it's going to be box. You can also just try coming down here, and I always like to try these three right here, auto fit, auto align, or best fit. So I'm going to go ahead and try auto fit. Nothing. Try auto align. Okay. Looks okay, but it looks terrible over here. And we'll try best fit. Okay. How about auto center? Nothing. So sometimes these work and your job is done. You can always hit reset and just get back to where you started from. All right, so I just clicked on reset, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do box projection because I want all of the sides to look the same. Now, right here where it says align local axis, I'm going to go through and I'm going to try y-axis here. Let's see. Okay, so you can see that everything is still stretched, and really simple. By clicking on these auto buttons here, you know, it tries to help you, but sometimes things get messed up, and when you hit reset, not everything resets. I'm not sure why. But what's happened here is the yellow helper right here, all of these three numbers here should be set to 1, and that's why it's stretched. The length was reset to 0. So I'm going to type in 1, press return, and you can see now it's actually a box, and so that's why it looks better now. Okay, so that is it. That's what worked for me. I have the width, height, and length set to 1. I have the U tile and V tile set to 1, and I changed it down here to box projection and the y-axis. Now, you can play around with this a little bit. So for instance, if I look over here, you'll see it's not quite perfect. You'll see that we can actually see the inside frame here a little bit. So if I change the height just a little bit, you can see that I can change the height there, and that maybe makes it look a little better, because what was happening is it was getting some of the frame. So there we go there. And so that looks better. Yep, and you can see a little bit on the top here. So maybe this goes to 1.1, the width. And let's see the length. Yep, there we go. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So my final settings are width 1.1, 1.1, 1.1 for the height and the length. And now let me turn off show edges. Let's go back to the object here, deselect, and there we go. We have a nice looking crate. Okay, so that's the finished piece. I just cloned all of the crates here, and then I set up this little room, which is really just made out of 3 planes, 1, 2, 3, rotated them, and added in a directional light just so I get some depth and bits of shadows here. This is what it looks like. And there we go. This would be ready for a little game setup. All right. Well, thanks for watching this tutorial series, and I will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.